saving all the energy for the end of the day. And
that's an assumption, but okay.
And super excited to hear this talk. I mean, we've all once been a new developer, so let's see how we can help.
Yeah.
More of those to get started.
Yeah. So, who am I? I'm Marijke. I am from the Netherlands, Groningen specifically, which is like all the way up in the north. What am I? I actually started with IT at 12, wrote my first HTML then. I love front-end web development, which is exactly why I don't do that professionally. So I became a back-end developer, studied it as well. I think I've been in, I'm not sure how long I've been, but somewhere between 1 or 2 decades in IT. I have 2 jobs at the moment. I work at Clippa, which is a OCR company, so you can scan like receipts and they put it through a whole cool like monetary tracking system. Well, it's cool. And it's a really cool company as well. And on Fridays, I am a coach at something called the Big Academy. It's a vocational education. Those are teens. They're ruthless. Like they were the first people to see this presentation. After that, nothing was scary anymore. Like seriously, they are. But like my students range between 15 and 33 of age at the moment, so that is quite a lot. Also, I will try to stand still, but I am very ADHD and tired. So let's just get started, and I hope. Spoilers. More spoilers. Oh my goodness, that is a shame. Yeah, it was this one. I love this thing, seriously. I have a couple sections. It's some like preparation, a bit about psychological safety, practicalities, and some parting words of wisdom. But first, leave your ego at the door. What I mean with that is if you want to train juniors, or I call them new developers, because you want people to adore you or want to know how amazing you are, or whether you want to tell them, yeah, I'm your boss, so do this or whatever. Anything like power plays or like ego tripping, no, that sort of disqualifies you for the job. So if you want to go and power trip, stay away from juniors. So with that being said, preps, get your house in order first. You first always need to have an onboarding strategy in your company. One of these reasons is because people who are new, especially when they're new in your company, that can also be senior developers, by the way, they need to know what the company is, who the company is, and who to ask when something is wrong. Clippa does a pretty cool job because as a new developer, you visit every stand-up of every team once. You get like introduction presentations, and there's like a whole hub with info, and there's HR that you can ask, and everyone's available, even the board. So that is pretty cool. So people will sort of learn in their first month where they have to go with which questions. Is it going to film me now? Seriously? No. Tools for communication. You must not only have one tool of communication, it's plural for a reason. Multiple tools for communication. For example, I have a lot of information processing issues. So if you talk to me, I will definitely not hear half of what you're saying and probably not understand the other half. So I prefer written, but some people just want to do Zoom calls all day, which is my definition of hell. But some people prefer that. So you must have multiple ways and tools for communication. And I am a huge fan of documentation, so I just push this everywhere. You must have documentation of everything, how the company works, how products work, whatever. Documentation brings a bit of like self-supportiveness to people. What's it called again? Independence. And also it allows you to forget things, like you write it down, people forget. I have once had a direct colleague die, like over the Christmas. That was really bad. And he didn't document, so I was like, that double sucked, like personally and professionally that both sucked. So write everything down. What's in someone's head should be on paper. And the good thing about documentation is the shorter it is, the higher the chance that someone is going to read it. So all that. By the way, I completely fangirled over Wilhelm's presentation earlier. So everything he said, all that and more. So psychological safety. This is the most important thing. What you must provide for anyone, but especially juniors, is a safe environment for them in which to make mistakes and to function, because people who feel unsafe they will not function, or they might get angry or whatever. You'll get into trouble. I did not come up with this idea. This is actually, I don't know whether it was Google who came up with the idea, but they did study this. And in 2012, they discovered that psychological safety is the number one key to having successful teams. Let's dive into it. One thing you must know beforehand is your position of power towards another person. People always have like sort of an unwritten hierarchy, like people who have been longer in a company will always be looked up to by new developers or new people. But there's also more like cultural. We of course have a lot of sexism and racism. And now look around the room for a moment and count the number of people here you see who are not a white dude. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah. So the first, if you have like a company full of white dudes, which we call a monoculture, the first woman or black person or whatever to walk in is probably going to suffer, or unless you have like a really good system in place to make them feel happy. And even then, it's a lot of work. I am, by the way, not qualified to dive into the details for this, but you always must be aware you might have a position of power. And I had a boss, or like, yeah, he was a boss, not a leader. And he, hope he's not watching, ex-boss, luckily. But he always said, like, I want people to be honest to me, to tell me what's going on. The thing is, people, especially when they don't have like a long-term contract, are not going to be honest to their employer. So you can say that you want people to be honest, but yeah. So always keep in mind door precision. Oh my goodness. You are getting so many spoilers today. That's really good. You do not want a clone. Your role as a guide is to sort of supplement their lack of experience with yours. I mean, everyone can learn, but their experience is the real thing that makes you a developer. I mean, we all become seniors because we have wrecked production a couple of times, or in my case, done a lot of dumb things, including deploying at 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon while drinking wine. That was not my best moment. It was many years ago, and it was really dumb. But like, if you haven't destroyed production database or whatever, at least once in your life, have you ever been a developer? Well, or you are a new developer, but you will. So, you know, it'll be cool. But like, people have like a lot of opinions. I think developers are super, super stubborn. And they're like, yeah, but I want it to be done like this or that. And my goodness, style guides are like something else. But you must remember that you do not want someone who thinks exactly like you do. Actually, it's more beneficial to have someone who does not think like you, because different people will come up with different solutions. And if we all act the same way, we won't have like a complete solution. For example, I love web accessibility. I'm not that good at it, but I advocate it everywhere. Like, I actually made a mistake earlier today on Twitter, not writing the hashtag correctly. Yeah, feel free to retweet. And that's the thing, because we don't have a lot of like blind people in our daily lives, maybe, but we need to learn to cater to people who are not like us. I mean, we are technical, savvy people with fast internet, good devices. Most of us are fully able. So we are like probably the worst user to design for, because we are perfect. And I say perfect because we're not perfect, but for developers, we're like the easiest target group. It's way better to target to a broad range of people. And if you have a broad team, there's more chance of you achieving that. It will also, by the way, cost a lot more time discussing everything. But well, suck it up, I think. So, and that also sort of ties in with new developers, new ideas. But what I mean with this one is that new people will look at your code or whatever, and they will be like, huh, why is that? And you're like, yeah, but we've been doing it like this for years. Okay, but why? And then sometimes in a good situation, gears will start rolling. They're like, yeah, why are we doing this? And I also make sure, like, if I have some people, young people, I will sometimes just drag them with me to complicated whiteboard sessions or whatever, because I think they are super valuable. Either they just learn or they contribute new ideas, which is a win-win. With that being said, this is my favorite. Success is a team effort, so is failure. I think working together as a team is what makes good products. I just casually mentioned doing a really dumb deploy at Friday afternoon while drinking wine. That was a bit dumb, but there were 3 seniors sitting around next to me who could have dragged me away from the screen, which they should have done, of course. But had I destroyed production, it would have been their fault as well. You cannot blame something on the junior, because, yeah, if you can allow like a new developer to ship a bug to production, then you can also be like, yeah, but who approved it? Who guided them? Who whatever? You cannot pinpoint a problem on one person. But so is success. Like, you support each other, you learn from each other. At Clippo, we try to have people like ask questions in public channels and not in DMs, so like everyone can chime in, and also for people to learn to ask questions. So work together. That is, yeah, important. And I will also always make a point of making compliments in public. Why? Well, for one, very practical. HR is in charge of renewing contracts. And the people who are in charge of renewing contracts usually don't know how someone performs. But if they see that someone got a lot of compliments in public, they have like more reason to keep someone on the employment role. But it also sort of improves someone's confidence and social standing. And you can say like, yeah, this person did something really well. Plus, we just need a bit more love in the world, I think. But keep your feedback private. And when I mean feedback, I don't mean code feedback. I mean like when you notice that someone is not performing well. You know, if you ask someone in public, yeah, why have you, or like if you even say you suck, that would be weird. But why have you been doing so badly these days? There's so many things wrong with that question. But maybe someone is grieving or stressed or whatever. And if you just put them out there, like HR is going to know, colleagues is going to know, there will be shame, there will be stress. It sort of starts a downward spiral. So anything sensitive, put it in private, but like boost someone up in public, and like a lot. So practicalities, more spoilers. More spoilers. Oh my god. Give an ADHD a button and things go wrong, like seriously. Oh my god, things go really wrong. This is really fun. I am having so much fun with this thing. I hope you are too. I am not touching the button now. You must limit the number of context moments. I learned this from experienced senior developers. I always thought that if you have to guide someone, you sort of have to helicopter over them and just keep checking in with them, which is a bad idea because you also need to let people go. So I check up on people maybe once a day, twice a day, and I make sure that they know that they can reach me if they really need me, or when I notice on the sprint board that things are going slower than expected. But funny thing is, one of the best things you can do while helping people is to leave them alone. It's pretty hilarious. I never thought about this before, but top tip. And I also reserve time slots. So I always know, like at a certain Thursday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon, I have a time reserved for someone. And you also must do that when you think you have nothing to discuss, because either you're going to find something to discuss or you have some private bonding time or whatever. Just make sure, like, this part of my agenda is yours. I think people respond really well to that because that's clarity and they know they have dedicated time and all that. And always stick to the one-on-one sessions. One-on-one, they don't have to be pair programming, though I do love pair programming. A lot of people indicated to me that they don't really like the whole classroom vibe, but with one-on-one sessions, you can sort of remove the classroom vibe because you can focus on someone's specific needs. Because like some people, like I said, prefer verbal communication. For me, like write things down and in bullet points. Like if you give me a bit of text like this, I will never read it. Promised. So you can cater your sessions to someone and they will feel free. And if they have something private to discuss, you have time for that as well. So yeah, I love this one as well. Actually, I love a whole lot of these slides and tips. I think I just love my job. But anywho, I have been going through my slides in a high-speed time. So we're already at the parting words. I have 2 words of sets of wisdom for you. First one is treat people like they're going to be around for years. There's this lovely fake conversation where someone says, what if we train someone and they leave? To which someone responds, what if we don't train someone and they stay? I can tell you, like, who would prefer the first situation? Hands in the air. Okay, who would prefer the second situation? You are allowed to raise your hand. I mean, I'm good. No shame. Yeah, so just train them. Which brings me to the second point. If you treat people well, they will advocate for you as well. It's like if you have an ex-employee or ex-colleague who is still talking really well about you, you have done your job right. And worst thing that can happen is you have invested some time in them and it's lost, or at least that's good for the other company who takes them after you. But in the best situation, you have an amazing colleague for years. And I also think that if you give the right example, like if you treat people well, genuine kindness and interest, that they will learn to do it back. Because I think we do have a bit of a vulnerability issue, at least lack of vulnerability issue in IT, where it's all like, oh, I'm cool, I'm amazing, and everything I do is the best thing ever. Yeah, that's not very healthy. I mean, we don't have to be all cuddly and cute together, but some level of empathy would be preferable as well. With that being said, I think I have just broken my record for this presentation. A little wrap up. I hope my head is not in. No. One of the things you have to do is provide psychological safety to people, which is actually the core of having a successful team. This is one of the slides I edited. What did I put here? Do not put people on the spot unless it's a compliment. Yeah. And you are a safety net, not constant supervision. And with that being said, where's my question slide? I had a question slide. Let's just keep it here then. Are there any questions? By the way, if anyone follows me on Twitter, you know, like, it's a bloody miracle that I'm even here. So, I am spent.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me be your question slide then. Are there any questions from the audience?
Sure.
The thing was only giving positive feedback in public, right? If you get like asked by managers or something to provide feedback on someone, do you also keep it exclusively positive? Because I have so far been doing that, but I noticed in the company everybody is doing it, and it leads to some title inflation.
So the question is, do we like stick to only positive feedback when managers ask? I don't. I will, of course, always present even negative feedback as like just a fact and not as a personal attack. Not like, oh, he is not performing well, but they could do better, or that I will find the words to not make it a personal attack. But I think if we want to teach people, we do them no justice to coddle them. And what you also must make sure is that your team as a whole is functional. And if you have one person who is not really going well, not really going right, you risk upsetting the balance of your whole team. So I don't really see it as much as negative feedback, when we're like things they still need to learn. And then we decide, I usually do that with my team lead, to focus a bit more on that in the coming weeks to just steer them in the right direction. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool.
A question in the back end.
You said at the end about like being vulnerable with each other. And how, that can be a struggle and maybe historically hasn't been as good. I'm curious what your advice would be about how we can all be more vulnerable with each other.
Well, how can we all be more vulnerable with each other? I think actually as dudes, you probably have to figure that out yourself a little bit. But I think honesty on itself is already good. Like you can just start practicing like little things like, I haven't slept well, or I don't really feel well. Just start with the little things and practice, and then eventually it will start growing. You don't have to open your heart to everyone. And, no one's going to force you to. I hope, at least that would be an HR breach probably. But you can just practice with the little things and build it up. And if other people see you do it, then they will also start copying, and then you get more genuine two-way conversations as well. Start practicing. Oh, and don't laugh at each other. Like seriously, some of you can be really mean to others. Like, you're like, ooh. Oh wow, you feel bad. Ooh. Don't put people down when they are opening up. Reward the good behavior.
So much good advice here, and if I can add a comment, it's not just about companies, but also about communities. For instance, a conference event or a meetup where people are new, and a lot of this goes as well.
Yeah, but I actually told Paolo this morning, I feel like our presentations are like the perfect hamburger today. Like he starts with the community, I end with the more like personalized approach, and then everyone in between halfly spoiled some of the slides. But I think a lot of people, I think this is a really good place where we're all helping each other. And maybe you don't find every presentation interesting, but it's still like you can still compliment people. Like might not be your subject, but cool that you did it. I mean, not everyone dares to put themselves up on the internet forever for everyone's eyes and scrutiny to see.
I couldn't agree more. I have a question, and I'm kind of hoping I'm looking forward to your answer.
Oh dear.
Does this advice of having an onboarding strategy, does that go for all organizations, no matter their size, no matter?
I think it does. I'm glad that you're happy with my answer. Also because I'm now in my second startup going scale up. This is like with Clippa, this is the second time I'm experiencing this pattern, and I notice how handy it is that they have already sort of practiced with certain strategies when they were small, because then they can scale it up instead of like, oh dear, we now have 30 employees, what do we do with them? So you can just build it up, and actually it's really good because if you're a small team, you can easily make like small corrections and all personal, which is much easier than when you have to cater to 30 people. So you have some time to just dig in a bit. So it's I think you should start when you're really small. That's the ideal time.
It doesn't have to be the onboarding strategy, but just a.
Yeah, but we all learn. Yeah. That's the thing. But if you like ask for feedback as well, like how did you think this was going, you will have some tools to make it even better for the next person. I mean, it is everything almost in communication is a two-way street if you want to, which you should. So yeah, just start onboarding.
There's a question there.
You emphasize quite much about documentation.
Yeah.
I cannot disagree with you. And
okay.
Do documentation, but the thing that I encounter every time is it being maintained, or how is it done, or how is the line for it or principle for it and so on. Do you have any advices or models or anything like that for keeping up, you could say, or keeping in a shape?
I did actually write a blog a couple years ago, blog article, which mentioned some of these things. Actually, documentation was a bit out of scope, but I think it's just one of the most important things. I always say that documentation, it's better to have no documentation and outdated documentation, and it's almost impossible to document after the fact. So when I see a pull request without documentation, I will nag people. And like, seriously, I got named head of documentation after some point because they were so, I had been doing this for weeks and they were like, okay, you're head of documentation now, jokingly, and it's kind of stuck. And I also have like Flake 8 plugins. I don't know who know. Does anyone not? Yeah, I have pre-commit with Flake 8 plugins. And I kept telling some of my people to a team that they needed to end their documentation with a dot and started with a capital letter. That was so annoying. So I just added Flake 8 plugins that now do it for me, which is really cool because now I'm not the annoying dictator. Flake 8 is now. So it just automated away and deny pull requests without documentation. I think it's also a bit like the same as with unit tests or whatever. Like, it's not maintainable if it's not there. Like, so just force people to write it, and people will object to that. Usually salespeople, I think. Yeah, you'll have to figure a way together to bypass sales in that case if they don't want it. I think most see the benefit these days. Yes.
Yes. Next question. It's at the window. Yeah.
A thing they often said is the best teacher is someone who just learned. And according to some of the things you said, we should also educate people to educate, which is like saying, when you learn this, you will be the next one to teach on the next onboarding.
Yeah.
And about this with documentation, a good rule is to say, if you ask questions, make a wiki page, then ask your question and write the answer into the wiki page, because you would be the best one to formulate something that's hard to grasp. It's like how to explain how to ride a bicycle. You cannot explain it because it becomes silent knowledge, and a lot of the things we do is silent knowledge.
This is exactly what we've been doing. Like, we also have like a developer presentation monthly where we just present stuff to the entire dev team. And when someone builds something really cool, we just tell them like, okay, you're going to present it, or you're going to write a wiki article, or both, usually both. So we already encourage that. And I also encourage like people to, I also want like the less experienced developers to do like pull request reviews and all that. I want them to experience the whole flow, because you cannot start early enough with learning how to like interact with each other. So good one.
And there was one more question. I think we have just a few minutes left.
Yeah.
So
Everyone wants beer, I guess. But
Nearly. How in the evolution of like remote working
oh
and
dear.
the mix of on-site, off-site, hybrid, distributed teams, how have you found that challenge while you're working on with teams?
Oh my God, this is,
Question.
I got this question back when I first gave this talk, and this is, this one is a bit mind blowing for me. I have a problem. I love remote working, but for the work that I do, I want to be there in person. So I'm like, one of the two has got to give. I hated remote pair programming, though you do have like these really cool plugins now in VS Code, in PyCharm or whatever, that allows you to share a screen together, like actual program together, which is super cool. Although I still prefer the in-person version. And I think you just need to call on each other more. Like in the office, you run into someone at the coffee machine and you're like, how are you doing? And if they're not really well, then you'll sort of hear it, or you can see that they're a bit sad, or you can like happy and you can act to that. Remote, you have to really just call in a couple times, maybe even plan it, just like, hi, just call in, how are you doing? That sort of thing. And I think that I'm not the type of person who likes that, because it's an interruption of your work if you're like programming. So I found that really hard, to be honest. But yeah, it's all about like finding what works with each other. There's no golden rule to this. But like for teaching people, I'm glad to be back in the office. It's not impossible, but it's not the best either.
That was possibly the last question. Is there
Beer?
anything you would have liked to be asked?
Now, oh my God. Well,
Really?
I am normally kind of dead at this time anyway, so I'm just happy that there's beer. But I would like to thank you. I am like super, like it was already explained, I'm like super happy that we have these like seat thingies. They're really cool. I love the venue. I think you did a marvelous job. It's really funny. I've been to a lot of meetups, conferences, but like starting off with the pronoun badges and a code of conduct and all that, not everyone does that. So I'm like super happy that you all did that. That's like good preparation as well. And I love the venue. I think you just did a marvelous job, and all the guys in the back.
We basically just got onboarded by other DjangoCon people.
Good strategy. And now, the one thing I had promised to make this an example. Email's like, oh God, she didn't forget. I would also love to have more women in IT. So like, try more. And one of the reasons why that just happened, look, this is my dress. Ladies, it has pockets. Pockets are a way to a woman's heart. So I was telling Emil, like, you can just put this in my pocket. It's like, okay. And I was like, yeah, only a dude would say it, because the women are like, yeah, pockets. And this is also one of the reasons why it's really cool if you have like more women, but also like people of different colors and ethnicities and all that. Then everyone can find someone they resonate with. So I'm so happy that there are women here, although I wish there were a bit more. So be kind to your fellow developing ladies and non-binaries and whoever else, dear men. Well, that's that.
Yes, 100 emoji.
Why am I clapping to myself?
And thank you, Marijke, for being
Beer?
sticking to the very last end, almost, because there is also lightning talks to
No beer then.
be